I'm your host, Carmilla, and this is Cat Scratch Radio, a horror podcast. Hey, everybody, welcome to Cat Scratch Radio. I'm your host, Carmilla Mays, and I'm here today with author and book cover designer Ruth Anna Evans. Hey, Ruth, tell me about yourself.
Hello. Well, I have been writing horror fiction for about 3 or 4 years now. My most recent book is Against Medical Advice. I've also got some anthologies out there, some collections. And I also design book covers for folks in the indie horror community.
I love that. I've seen a lot of your work and I really like it. I enjoy it a lot. I'm also a book cover designer, so it's been really cool watching you explore new techniques and stuff.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have to ask everybody that comes on the show, what is your favorite scary movie?
My favorite scary movie is definitely The Shining. I will always go to that one. It's awesome.
That's an excellent choice. A fun side note of that, I was um not dating this guy, but I met him through Tinder, and I have the rug that's like especially made for The Shining with the orange
Yeah.
pattern. Well, I have pillows with that decoration on it, and he
Oh,
asked
that's
me,
fancy.
he goes, "What is that from? I know it's from something." I'm like, "Oh, it's The Shining," right? Because I'm excited because I know exactly what it's from. And he goes, "No, it's not. I'm pretty sure it's from something else." And
That's
I
not
don't
exactly a green flag.
know, definitely a red flag. I was like, you might be with the wrong person. Uh,
That's funny.
so tell me
What
why.
a tool.
Yeah, he was a tool, trust me. So tell me why medical horror?
I think medical horror is really scary. Um, because I mean, it's the type of thing that can just happen to any of us at any time. You can just lose everything. You can lose everything financially. You can lose everything physically. You can lose all of your time. Um, and it's just so possible. And then also just small things. Um, like having having like a minor chronic illness can totally wipe you out financially as well in the United States. So I mean, all of that stuff just kind of combines into this anxiety and dread that I think make for a good horror story.
Yeah, I can agree with that a lot. So I don't talk about this all the time, but I had cancer when I was a kid.
Oh god.
And at 14, I actually died for like 30 seconds.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so they were able to get fresh blood in me and, get me back to life. But yeah, I think about that a lot when I think about medical horror.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was,
nothing like that has ever happened to me. I have ulcerative colitis, and so I have to do a lot of like colonoscopies and sticking sticks up my butt and like just terrible stuff
mhm.
um, that makes you hate going to the doctor. And so that's kind of where some of it comes from. But also it's just a fear, like it's kind of an existential dread that I live with of, at any point you could have an aneurysm and just be a vegetable and have your family have to take care of you.
Yeah, that's terrifying. It really is. I get migraines a lot, and I always
Oh
worry
yeah.
about that. It
Yeah.
stresses me out. So
I had
I,
the weirdest migraine one. Have you ever had, I think they're called silent migraines. Have you ever had a silent migraine?
I'm not sure.
So it's a migraine without pain. Um, but it's as though you're in pain. So like you have like that panic, and like pressure and this sense that like something's really, really wrong. But it's no pain, but it's like it's blinding. I thought I was having a stroke. It may have been like a mini stroke migraine. I don't know, but it was crazy. I was bawling. Um, and then it was gone. I took some migraine medicine and it was gone. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, I had never heard of it before, but I was just like Googling my symptoms. And that's exactly what it was. It was a silent migraine.
Wow, I don't think I've ever experienced something like that, or if I have, I confused it for my anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought it was a panic attack, but it's so hard to explain. It was very physical. Um, and it was in my head, the same place a migraine would be, except there was no pain.
Wow.
Weird.
That is really weird.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to writing medical horror, is a lot of it from personal experience, or do you kind of embellish and go from there?
I embellish a lot of it is based on, like, because I'm a parent. And so, against medical advice is about a parent whose child gets really sick out of the blue. And so, I have that fear of my child getting sick out of the blue and not being able to afford the care. Um, and then it just kind of goes from there of like what happens next. From there, it's just like the storytelling part of me. Um, the oh fuck it hurts, the collection of medical horror, there are a
Hmm.
few in there that are based on personal experience, especially with the autoimmune disease. There's one called autoimmune in there, and the guy has an illness where his flesh falls off of his bones just periodically.
Oh, wow.
um, and so, like, the going in for treatment, being like, well, we know this isn't going to work, but we have to try it 2 weeks for the insurance. And then, like, you have to be desperately ill for 2 weeks, waiting for them to agree that this isn't working. Um, and just that kind of stuff. So, like the little tidbits from being in the doctor's office and feeling exposed. Um, everybody kind of feels that way. So I just try to take those things and put them into story.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So would you say that the illness or the doctors are more the villains in your story?
A lot of times the doctors are trying to help. A lot of times the doctors, and especially the nurses in my stories, are really, like, in general, have their hearts in the right place. There's some really, like, notable examples, but of not that way. But in general, because most of the ones that I've met really want to help you get better, it's just the system. Um, like, you know, insurance companies are definitely an evil in
Yeah.
mine. Although without my insurance, I probably would be dead. I have, bipolar
Hmm.
as well. And, um, if I were medication free, I don't know what my life would be like. I don't know that I would be dead necessarily. That may be um, an exaggeration, but I definitely wouldn't be living a happy life. And so I can't afford those medications on my own. So, I am grateful that I have insurance, but it's just such a, like, I'm on a medication that's $20,000 a month.
Ooh,
I mean, what?
yeah,
Like,
that's
what?
wow.
You can buy a car with that. I
You
can buy a
could.
car 12 times in a year with the little shot that I take. It's crazy.
That is very crazy. I'm on a lot of medication myself. I'm also
Yeah.
bipolar. Um, and without my medication, I am just a rock and roller coaster that is
Yeah.
I don't like to be around.
No. No, it's just too much. I mean, you can't just stay sick when you've got something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So one of my stories, um, "Do Not Go in That House." It's a haunted house novella. Um, it's about a girl who has bipolar, and she runs out of medicine and can't get it refilled because she doesn't have enough money for the copay, and ends up having a manic episode. So I write about that side of it as well, the mental and the physical health. Um, but, like, it's just scary. It's just really
Hmm.
scary. It's something that those of us who have some health problems kind of live with, because we know how bad it could get, how quickly.
Yeah. Having gone through chemotherapy and radiation, I have a lot of after effects.
Mm,
So I totally understand.
yeah, that's a lot. Well, I'm glad that you're okay.
Oh, I'm glad that I'm okay too. Trust me, they told me flat out, they're like, we don't think that this treatment's going to work. And I was like, let's do it anyway.
Wow. How old were you?
I was 12 when I was diagnosed.
Golly.
Yeah. I Was 12 years old when I was diagnosed, and the doctor didn't want to tell me to my face that I had cancer and wanted to tell my aunt, who I lived with at the time, instead. And I told the doctor, if this is about me, you need to be talking to me.
Yeah.
And I kind of had an attitude as a 12-year-old, so,
Well,
but
I mean, it's right. It's you're the one who's gonna have to deal with it in the end. So,
yeah, and
um,
they told me that basically I had Hodgkin's lymphoma and pretty much not a lot of people survive it. And I was like, well, let's do treatment because I would like to live. Um,
yeah,
and we ended up going through chemotherapy, and I was considered in remission at 15, and it came back when I was 16 in a different location. And then
that's
I
a
was
lot of years of your childhood. Sick.
pretty much my whole childhood from 12 to 18. I was in and out of doctor's offices, radiation, chemotherapy, all that jazz.
Wow. Wow. That's
So,
all I got. Wow.
yeah, yeah, it was an experience. And, it got me into graphic design. So there's that silver lining.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Bipolar got me into graphic design.
nice.
Yeah, because I was
Oh,
having a manic episode, and it was the only thing that I could do was make art.
yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
started posting it, and I think I sold my first cover for $7.99, um, just because I wanted to, I wanted to make more, and
Hmm.
um, that just really encourages you to make more when people give you money for it. So
It definitely does. My very first cover, I think they paid me $40 and it was a tip because I did it for free.
nice. I
Yeah,
love tips.
tips are amazing. They're my favorite. More
Yeah,
more
me
people
too.
should tip their cover designers.
More people should tip their cover designers, especially because we really try to keep costs as low as we can. Um,
Yeah, especially in the indie industry.
yeah, yeah. If you've got a cover designer who's working their tail off to get enough work done that they can have low prices, then
Hmm.
throw them a few bucks. But I forget to tell my clients that I accept tips, so I don't. They have a price they pay, and they pay the price, and I really appreciate them for that. But
Yeah,
I should probably mention when I sell my pre-mades sometimes. Tips are welcome.
tips are definitely welcome, especially if you do any customization to the already pre-made cover.
Mm. Yeah, people are pretty good about if they ask for major changes to the pre-made. They are pretty good about offering to pay.
Good. So what got you into writing horror?
Fear. It was the pandemic, and then um, what was my first horror book? Well, okay, so what it was is it was the pandemic, and I had always wanted to write a book, and I was super bored and tired of looking at my phone, and doom scrolling and all the stress of the election and everything. And so I sat down and wrote a book, and it was not intended to be horror. It was like a young adult fantasy, um, magical realism, a young adult magical realism. And then when I finished it and people started reading it, somebody told me, this is actually psychological horror. And I was like, oh, if I could write horror, I have lots of ideas. So it's just kind of like once I got on the horror train, the ideas just flow. So I'm staying there because I that was why I didn't write until my late 30s. Is I just didn't have story ideas. I would have
Yeah.
like a little thought and it would never turn into a story. So that's where my ideas lay, is in horror.
Yeah, most of mine are in horror. I tried writing fantasy, and every time I do, it turns into a dark fantasy immediately.
Yeah.
Uh, so what started you in horror in general? Like, have you always been a consumer of horror?
No, because I was raised super sheltered.
Mm,
Um and so we never watched any horror movies. And then when I went to college, I watched the big stuff. I watched the Blair Witch Project, and um, that was probably the first horror movie that I was like, "Wow, this is freaking awesome." Um, But then when I met my husband, he's a big horror movie buff, and so we watch a lot together. And so I kind of have developed my taste of I like this, I really don't enjoy that, um, through movies. And then um, reading horror really came as secondary to writing it. I just ended up making a lot of friends in the horror community and reading their books, and was like, oh, this is really fun to read as well as to write. So then I've sort of broadened my horizons a little bit um, in my reading, but it's really interesting because I tend to not be able to read stuff that's as scary as what I write
Hmm,
because it's too scary.
that's
So,
interesting.
yeah, I read like paranormal. Like one of the my recent reads was episode 13 by Craig DeLuey, and I mean it's just like it's a really imaginative paranormal story with like all kinds of twists and turns, sort of a little adventure-y. I like adventure horror, but when we're talking about like the deep existential dread, I stay really far away from that because it fucks with my head.
That's totally fair. I read a lot of horror and I watch a lot of horror movies. I watched um a new horror movie last night called The Legend of Lake Hollow, and it was terrible.
Oh, is
Uh
it terrible? Oh
it's
no.
it's so bad. Um I mean, if you have time to watch it and you don't mind blowing an hour and a half of your life away.
Well, I do mind. So I'm going to take your experience as a cautionary tale and probably won't watch that one.
Yeah, I I was definitely blown away with how bad it was.
Oh my gosh, what did I watch recently that was super duper bad? Oh, my husband put it on. He puts on the worst movies sometimes. It was like ants were taking over, and it was I don't know the movie, but it was super low budget. And the whole it was like 30 minutes of watching ants crawl through their tunnels and have like little conversations with each other, and then two actors came in and acted, um and then I walked away because it was too bad.
Was it called Empire of the Ants?
I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe. It was
maybe.
older. It was definitely it was late 70s, early 80s.
Well, there's a lot of horror movies in that time period about ants for some reason.
Well, it was a bad one.
It's a bad one. Good to know. Uh,
If you're looking at ant movies from the late 70s, early 80s and you find a bad one, that probably is the one I was watching.
so speaking of like horrible movies, what's your favorite form of horror and why?
Um I like horror that involves kids. Um so I like that. And then I also found footage is a big I'm a big fan of found footage.
Yeah, me
Um
too. Found footage is really awesome. I love it.
yeah.
Cloverfield and Blair Witch and all of that.
I really haven't seen very many found footage films that I don't like, even the older ones. Um like I'm terrible with names, but the one with the fake haunted house that they thought was fake and it turned out to be a real haunted house. And it was like a TV special, like a Halloween special.
Uh,
Um
isn't it Hell House LLC? Is that the one?
no, it's way older than that.
Oh,
I'll
it's
ask my
older.
husband when he comes back in. It was like an ABC special, like a TV network was doing a a show on Halloween where they were like pretending this house was haunted, and it turned out the house was actually haunted, um, and that was really good. And I mean, obviously, I'm obsessed with Blair Witch, and I finally got my 15-year-old daughter to watch it with me, and I was so nervous that she wouldn't like it because I'm her mom, but she loved it, and I was so relieved, and we enjoyed that together.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and then one of my other favorite movies is Creep. So I loved Creep. Um,
I hope you know because of Blair Witch, I'll never be the same.
my daughter says because of Blair Witch, she'll never be the same. Yay!
Good. It's a life-changing
I got
movie.
my dose of childhood trauma.
Awesome. I'm so glad I gave you appropriate childhood trauma.
15's a good age for it. It's fine.
I think so. I think 15. I mean, there's nothing like incredibly graphic in the
No.
movie. It's just the fear.
Yeah, it's a fear movie. You don't even really see the monster at all. So,
Right. Right. It's so good. But yeah, I really loved Creep because it was so creepy, and As Above, So Below is one of my other
oh my
favorite
gosh, yeah,
movies.
I loved that movie.
So good. It was
Yeah.
just really quality. Um, just the sense of disorientation that they got.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed. So yeah, that's what I like. I like found footage, and then I like movies with kids in it. And like Sixth Sense is one of my nostalgic favorites,
Oh
and
yeah, that's a good one.
yeah.
I like movies with kids in them because I think that it increases the fear for a lot of
Hmm.
us, especially as
Yeah,
adults, because that natural protective like instinct comes up.
yeah, for sure. And then also, a creepy kid is way creepier than a creepy adult. Like, I know a lot of people don't like remakes, but I just watched the uh, oh, well, it wasn't Pet Cemetery. I mean, Pet Cemetery was super good. I really enjoyed it, but terrible with names. The one where the kids turned evil. It There's something wrong with the children.
Ah,
Um, yeah, that one was really scary, and I loved it. So
yeah, definitely get like stories like Children of the Corn are those ones where I'm like, okay. And
yeah,
it's very creepy.
yeah. I went through a phase where I was making just way too many um scary kid covers. It was like every other cover I made was a scary kid cover. And you can saturate the market.
Somebody might need it. You never know.
Somebody might need four of them. Why not?
A whole series. I,
I've got this one that still hasn't sold, and it totally should have. It's a kid it's a baby in an electric chair, and I love it, but hasn't found its home yet. So
I
I enjoy kid horror with covers
Me
too.
too. Yeah. I did a series of covers for a client that were all scary looking dolls.
Oh, fun!
Yeah, that was really fun to do.
That is fun.
So on the opposite of that, what's your least favorite form of horror?
Um, I don't like older dramas, like serious horror. I don't like giallo at all. Um, because my husband really enjoys that genre, and I can't watch it for more than 10 minutes before I just am bored to tears. Um, yeah, so I don't like giallo. I don't like hyper serious drama.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I can see that. I think for me, it's gore for gore's sake just bores me.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
If there's no story attached, then I'm just checked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Okay, let me think so I can get an actual good piece of advice and not just the first thing that comes to mind. Hmm. Let's come back to that one.
Okay, that's totally fine. I have some
Yeah,
fun questions.
something will pop up in my head. I'm just not 100%.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I have some
Yeah.
fun questions for you. So,
Okay.
have you ever been to a haunted house? And I don't mean the ones that are like designed to be a haunted house and spooky that you walk through. Like, have you ever been to a house that's supposedly haunted?
So, like, I don't feel spirits, and I would say I don't believe in them, but there are people in my life that really do believe that they feel spirits. Um, And so one of them is my mom, and she says that the house that we lived in when I was in high school was haunted um, by an evil man. But I never felt it. So luckily, I just have no connection to the spirit realm, and I want to keep it that way. But yeah, uh,
That's so valid.
let's just not talk. Stay away.
Yeah,
But
definitely
somebody who
fair.
has that like sensory perception or feels like they do came to the house I live in currently, and they were like, "You're clear. This house is not haunted." So I feel good.
Yeah. So what is the scariest story you've ever heard?
The scariest story I've ever heard:
Mhm.
getting cancer at 12.
I guess that's fair. I lined that up for you.
Oh my god! And it lasting for 6 years.
Yeah, it was a big portion of my life.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, that's valid. It was pretty
Yeah,
scary.
yeah.
So what do you prefer, psychological thrillers or slasher films?
Oh, psychological thrillers for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree there.
I
I
just feel like I've seen the slasher film. I've seen it. Like the only one I even like anymore is Cabin in the Woods. And I mean obviously that's a different take on it. So
mhm. That's a much different take on it. Cabin in the Woods is such a good take on it.
yeah, I love that movie, but almost because I don't like slashers. And
Um,
it's I mean it's a homage to them, so I
mhm.
appreciate that part of it, but one of the reasons I like it is cuz it like has so much fun with something that I just don't like. It makes something fun that to me isn't that fun. I just don't think slashers are that fun. I don't like watching people get murdered over and over again. It doesn't do it for me. But that's okay that I mean other people can like it.
I think I prefer it when like it's a monster, you know what I mean, that they're running
Mm,
from.
yeah, I guess I feel like the fun because I watch movies for entertainment. Um, so I don't necessarily find death entertaining, but I do find monsters entertaining.
Right, same. Um, I, I don't think there's any slasher films. Oh, the Totally Killer. Have you seen that one?
Mm-mm, no, I haven't.
So it's on Prime if you ever get a chance to watch it. Um, it is a sci-fi and slasher blend.
Okay,
Um, really cool concept. It's about a girl who goes back in time to try and stop um some people that like she knows and her mom from dying from um from a slasher, basically from a
okay,
murderer. It's
okay.
really well done. I was not expecting to like it because I don't particularly like slasher films all that much, but I actually really enjoyed it.
Sweet, I'll check it out. I have Prime. I'm always hoping to try something that I might like. And my husband would be excited for me to be open to one like that.
Yeah. So tell me about one of your most recent work in progresses.
Okay, so I am working on um a collection of body horror novelettes. Um and it's called Skin Breaks, and um it's gonna be a touch bizarre. Um but the first story that I'm working on is like a body horror haunting. Um so this woman sort of kind of kills her mom on accident, but like she it's kind of like she didn't try very hard to save her. um and then the mom comes back and haunts her, and the ghost is rotting, and she ends up infecting the living girl, and she starts rotting, but it's also an emotional rot that's happening. So a lot of my body horror, the physical um dissolution is reflective of the internal what's happening in the emotions. So yeah, it's going to be a really emotional book. It's going to be a really disgusting book, um, and I cannot wait to see this one finished.
Awesome. That actually sounds really entertaining.
Thanks.
It reminds me a little bit of Smile. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so it reminds me a little bit about how her trauma from her mom dying is like
Mm,
so heavily attached to the spirit that's also like haunting her.
yeah. Yeah, so I could totally see that. Because the mom was a bad mom. She was a total biatch.
Mm.
Um and but the main character is really nice. She's sweet to her daughter, and she's like broken that generational curse. Um but the mom haunting her has it kind of starts eating into that, and she starts not being as good of a person.
Oh wow, that's see, I really love that. I love very heavily character driven stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that one. I'll definitely pick it up when you release it.
Thank you. It's going to take I'm writing really slowly right now. Um I don't like to say I'm in a writer's block. I'm in a slump, but I that's not going to keep me from writing. I will write this book. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen really slowly.
Totally fair. I write pretty slowly sometimes too, and then there's other times where I just pump out a book like nothing happened in 4 months.
It's awesome. That's great.
So let's circle back here. Any best piece of advice you can think of?
I would say don't be afraid to promote yourself. Um just, brag about your work, and not I don't mean that in a negative sense, but you work that hard on something and you're not going to tell anybody about it. Like, absolutely promote yourself while you're promoting everybody else. Like, everybody rises up when you're willing to um make a big deal out of stuff. Like, writing a book and publishing a book and creating art, that's a big deal. It's not easy, and not everybody could do it. So, you know, make a splash. Why not?
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that a lot too, and I hope that a lot of the authors who listen to my podcast heard that because marketing yourself, especially as an indie author, or
Hmm.
even if you're trad pub, you need to market yourself and
Absolutely.
just scream it at the top of your lungs. The moment I get a book published, I will not shut up about it, and I know that about myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And why shut up about it? The people who care about you and who are good people are going to be there with you and share it with you. And if they're not in the mood to be doing marketing, they're just going to scroll on by, and that's fine too. Um, and the people who are grouchy about it, they can go on somewhere. You
Yep,
know,
they
it's
can
the
take a long
internet. It's
hike.
not like nobody's required to be on your page. They have a million other things they can look at. So
Mhm.
people don't mind as nearly as much as people are afraid they're going to mind.
Yeah, I think that from a young age that we're all kind of indoctrinated with the fact that we're like, oh, everybody's going to care about everything you do. Don't talk about your successes because it's going to make other people feel inferior and stuff
Yeah,
like that. But I disagree. I think that we're all on the same team and we should be supporting each other.
I think so too. And I've gotten so much support, and I really try to give back, um, and support the other people who are really trying to do something. So, but I mean, you have to stay grateful. I think is really important as you're marketing yourself. Like, every time somebody does a beta read for you, every time somebody does an arc read for you, anytime somebody shares something, or even just comments on a post that they like something, like, that is time out of their day that they spent supporting you. So I mean, if you're not grateful for what other people are doing to support you, you should stop marketing, because that's not cool. You should definitely appreciate the people who are helping you.
Yeah, it's definitely not about stepping on people. It's definitely about uplifting each other.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm endlessly really appreciative, especially with my cover design career. There's so many people who have um, like mentioned me, and when someone's like, "Hey, do you know a cover designer?" They'll say my name. Nobody asked them. I'm not paying them to do that. That doesn't do anything for their lives to give me a shout out like that. And I just, like, I wouldn't have happening what I have happening without that kind of support. So I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same, especially when it comes to uh, my cover design work. The fact that people will shout my name out, I'm like, oh my God, thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah.
And I did want to
Yeah.
point out that I don't know how you haven't sold The Widow yet. That pre-made, that
I
it
know,
is
right?
how it hasn't sold yet. It's so beautiful. Uh,
Thank you.
if I had a story for it, I'd buy it myself.
You could just buy it yourself and tattoo it on your ass. I mean,
uh,
somebody needs to buy that thing. It's got to be a book.
right? I really hope somebody picks it up and writes the story for it because I female medical doctor in like the Victorian era, like yes, plague doctors, I'm all for it.
Oh, it could be so cool. It could be so cool. And that is one I didn't put that image together. That was a stock photo, but it just inspired. I spent a really long time on making that one look just exactly how I wanted it to look. So I hope if it's bought, somebody like gets like the aesthetic that I was going for, because it is my vision really came through in that one. I think, even though it's so weird how you can have a stock photo and it still is like you.
Oh yeah. The way we alter things and texture things makes a huge difference, I think.
Hmm. And then typography as well, like
Oh
um
yeah.
because you're a little nervous sometimes when you're using a stock image, and I remind myself, if you walk into a bookstore, um, single images are important part of the book cover world, um, but you have to do everything so well in order for it not to just be an image that you put on a page with some text on it. The typography has to be perfect. It's got to have that polish. um, so yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So where can my listeners find you and your work?
RuthAnnaEvans.com.
Oh, that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
very easy. I'll put that in the description of the episode.
Yeah, thanks. And then, oh, I also have my book cover design group, which is Ruth Anna Evans Cover Design. Um, and then I'm pretty active on Facebook as myself, just Ruth Anna Evans.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I had a blast talking to you and learning about medical horror. That's something that I'm not like on the up and up about, so it was really interesting to hear about that and hearing about your current work in progress. I
Well, thank
am
you so
super
much.
excited for that. Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever have another topic that you would like to come onto the show for, be sure to give me an email.
Okay, I absolutely will. Thank you.
You've been listening to Cat Scratch Radio, a horror podcast with your host, Carmilla Mays, also known as Matu C. Lawrence. If you want to find me on social media, just look up MX Carmilla.